manager and leadership development, employee recognition, workforce planning, as well as onboarding of new employees and also early career development. So huge portfolio with a very small and mighty team. Vince, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I want to echo David's sentiments. I'm honored and privileged to be here today. Thank you for inviting us. A little bit more about my background. I'm a technologist. I have a passion in my whole career in developing technology that in figuring out how that technology can be as most usable as possible, which has tons of applications to all of us as we try to develop programs that people actually engage with. So I'm based in the state of Utah, where it's been 100 degrees this past week, and it's a pleasure to be here. Great.
Thank you, Vince. So what are we going to cover during our time together today? I'm going to give you a quick overview of who Kaiser Permanente. The good news is you and Georgia are probably a lot of you are familiar because we service your area as well. We're going to talk about why we needed this reinforcement strategy. What is a chatbot? What is our vision for this work, the audience and learner needs, also where we are today, so what's our current approach to this, roles and responsibilities needed to support mobile chat, what did it take to launch the program, mobile chat, our pilot results and where we are today, and that's what we're going to cover during the time with you all today. So I'm first going to give you a quick overview of who Kaiser Permanente is, if you're unfamiliar. So Kaiser Permanente is a healthcare organization that's been in business for, in fact, we celebrated our 75th anniversary last week. And our mission is to provide high quality, affordable health care to our members and our communities we serve. Kaiser is very steeped in beliefs, and we work together guided by our mission and our beliefs. We believe that when we connect around our shared beliefs, we can ignite our organization and make change. Our beliefs were developed by our top 30 leaders at Kaiser Permanente, and so they are, as you see on the screen here, we believe that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness require total health, and that includes equal access to high quality health care for all. We also believe that total health is more than freedom from physical affliction. It's also about mind, body, and spirit. We also believe that health care must be affordable for all because thriving individuals, families, and communities require that. And we believe in healthy and engaged life with good beginnings and very much dignified endings. As an organization, you can see here that we are the nation's largest total healthcare, integrated healthcare delivery system. So what that means is Kaiser's also the insurer, so the insurance company, as well as the delivery mechanism. So we are the hospitals, the doctors, and all the pharmacies and all the care associated with delivery of healthcare services, also with the insurance side, integrated. So you can see here from the screen, we have about, right now I think the slide's updated, we have about 12.4 million members across the country. We have about 47,000 doctor office visits a year. You can see some other stats. We give about $2.8 billion back to the community in investments. We have about 220,000 employees, 24,000 physicians, 52,000 nurses, and you can see we have 39 hospitals across the country, and then our medical office buildings and the number of pharmacies we have. Kaiser is actually located in 7 regions across the U.S. Our success is rooted in the collaboration of relationships that we have with our hospitals as well as our health plan. We are located in the state of Washington and the Oregon, what we call the Northwest region. California, since it's so large, we have what we consider 2 regions, the North and South, Colorado, Georgia, and Mid-Atlantic states, which is D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. So now I'm going to describe to you, and I just realized there's a typo that I thought we corrected in this presentation about reinforcement. Apologize for that. So now I'm going to talk to you about why and what is a reinforcement strategy. So for us, a reinforcement strategy, which is the premise of this presentation and why we wanted to go forward with Mobile Coach, is a multifaceted approach for us to strengthen core topics and content grasped during training and learning. So according to ATD, there are 5 reinforcement gaps. One is, of course, in knowledge, one is in skills, one is in motivation, the other is in environmental gaps, and the other is communication gaps. So for us to be successful in bringing performance to our organization, we must continually be searching for innovative ways to lessen the situation around reinforcement. So basically, it takes really multiple approaches, as you can see, to get to an effective process of reinforcement. But we believe that you'll see at the end of this that Mobile Coach is a great way for us to meet our requirements around a reinforcement strategy. So first, we're going to turn it over to Vince, who's going to talk about what a chatbot is.
Yeah, so thank you, David, for that context and introduction. So a chatbot is, the definition of a chatbot is a computer program designed to simulate conversation. And when a lot of people think about chatbots, they think about, there's kind of 2 popular things to think about with chatbots. First is the movies, where, you know, artificial intelligence and sort of bots have been depicted for years in the movies. You know, think about HAL and Space Odyssey, or the movie Her, or, you know, Iron Man's Jarvis, where you have a computer simulating conversation. Now, of course, in today's world, technology is still not up to par where you're going to have a real, legitimate, emotional-based conversation with a chatbot. The other thing that people think about with chatbots is a web-based chatbot that's a customer service user experience. And so I think most of us have had some experience going to some website and having a chat window pop open, and it just says, how are you? And it's a very transactional user experience. It's like asking, you know, maybe you're there as a customer and you need to have one question answered and then you're done with the chatbot. And so those are both sort of common ideas of chatbots. Today, we're talking about chatbots that are more coaching, that are on a mobile device, and the user experience is not transactional, but actually creates a relationship with the audience, and you have a conversation over time. The big advantages of a chatbot is can be summarized through a product lens through the idea of a conversational user interface. And I want to explain that to you by inviting you to try a little demo here. So you see on the screen this demo of where you can take your phone, open up a new text message to that 801 number you see on the screen, and then just message that phone number the word reinforcement. And this demo is like only a 2 to 3 minute little demo, but it's patterned after the work that we did with David and his team. So I would invite you to give that a try. If you have your phone with you too, you can just point your camera at that QR code and it will pop open a text message. So either way will work. So I'd invite you to try that just so you can have a hands-on experience and some context about the rest of the presentation today. But you'll notice when you do that, just like you're texting a friend or a colleague, it's such a frictionless user experience. There's no username and password you have to set up and create. You know, there's no user interface you have to try to learn because everyone already knows how to message. So please take a look, or please give that a try. And if you have already done that and you've heard back from the chatbot, could you just pop in the chat that you've heard back just so that I know it's working and we're not having any Murphy's Law, gremlins in the system that during this presentation. So if you've tried it and you've heard back from the chatbot, just pop in the chat that it's working. Thank you, Jay, for doing that. And Kathy, great. So you don't have to go through the whole demo, just exchange enough messages to get an idea of what the user experience is like. So if we can go to the next slide, I've already talked a little bit about this, but these statistics I think are very compelling when it comes to user engagement. And the reason that you're looking at chatbots as a reinforcement strategy is the fact that you're trying to get people engaged over a period of time. So 76% of people feel like their life has been improved by mobile messaging. It's just so convenient. 40% of customers really at the end of the day don't care if they're talking to a bot or a human, as long as they're getting their needs taken care of. And so a lot of times I hear people concerned, voice a concern, boy, are people willing to talk to a computer? Well, what we have found is that the answer is absolutely yes, if that conversation is feeling valuable to them. And then just to give you a sense of the type of business results that an organization could gain from deploying a chatbot, in a customer service use case, companies can save up to 30% of overall customer support costs by deploying a chatbot. So again, it's a frictionless user experience. The other thing about chatbots that's really compelling is instantaneous. Chatbots don't sleep. You know, they can answer a question, the same question at 3 a.m. as 3 p.m. They can talk to thousands, if not tens of thousands of people at one time. And of course, those are things that human beings have a hard time, you know, the human beings can't scale like that. So those are the benefits. And of course, for the organization then, the huge benefit is you can scale that type of support and those types of automated conversations without having to build an expensive and large human-based team. So those are some of the compelling statistics. If we go to the next slide, some common chatbot types you might be aware of. I've already talked a little bit about this one on the screen, where you go to a public website and you have a chat window pop open. I'm sure all of you have had some form of that experience. The middle one is quite interesting, where it's the same modality, where you still have a web widget show up, and you can kind of see that. I know the screen's a little small, but you can see that little web window in the middle. But the difference is that if you've logged into a web portal and a chatbot pops open, now all of a sudden that web portal knows who you are, and so the chatbot can be quite contextual. So the example on the left, where you're going to just some public website, every time you go to the website, it's not going to remember you. It's just going to be the same menu over and over and over again. So you're an anonymous user. In the middle use case, it can know. So it could say, "Hey, welcome back, Vince." And imagine like logging into an organization's LMS and then having the chatbot know who you are. It could say, "Welcome back, Vince. I've noticed that you started this course 3 weeks ago and haven't finished it. Here's the link to finish it." Or it could be smart by saying, "Hey, based on your job function and your tenure at the company, here are 3 courses I recommend you take a look at." You know, so in this middle case, when you're logging into a web portal, can be a very compelling user experience to deliver really personalized messages. And of course, on the right is the one that we're experimenting with today, where you're on some common mobile messaging platform. Now, a chatbot can be on any common mobile messaging platform. For today's presentation, I chose SMS just because I think most of us in the United States are accustomed to using SMS, but a chatbot could be on Facebook Messenger, on WhatsApp, Telegram. There are about a dozen really popular messaging platforms across the world. So if you're a multinational organization, it's likely you've got people in different areas of the world that will use different forms of messaging. And you want your chatbot to be on those channels because, again, we want things to be frictionless. And that also includes worksite collaboration platforms like WebEx Teams and Microsoft Teams and Slack and platforms like that. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of what chatbots in general are. Let's talk about some common chatbot use cases. The one that we're talking about today is reinforcement. And reinforcement's a great use case for a chatbot, because the way I like to think about it is that it extends the conversation that you start in some formal training setting. Now that formal training setting could be, COVID has sort of thrown everything out the window, but traditionally you could have a classroom instructor-led training. You could have a virtual instructor-led training. You could have a e-learning training. So I would call those sort of formal packaging of content, where a learner is consuming that in a formal way. And then if the chatbot's made smart about that training content, you can then craft a conversation that lasts, I don't know, 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, that extends that conversation, keeps it alive in someone's mind. And so I think that's where why a chatbot's a great modality for a training reinforcement. So essentially you're designing a curriculum of nudges, reminders, sort of light bulb type of exercises over time. So another use case is that I think is really compelling is onboarding. And this is both, of course, this slide here focuses on the onboarding of new hires, but I think like the onboarding of any onboarding, so a new manager onboarding program or onboarding to a new role, anywhere where there's a learning curve that you're going to have to consume. So think about a chatbot in an onboarding use case being a micro-learning delivery modality. And so instead of hooking yourself up to a fire hose in an orientation and being overwhelmed, you can drip that over time. So, and with the onboarding use case, you can not only drip them with the orientation materials around job function, but think about culturally as well. I heard a wonderful use case in the United Kingdom of a company that deployed a chatbot for onboarding, not using a mobile coach platform, just deploying a chatbot on their own. And one of the questions that came in that surprised the onboarding team was women who are texting the chatbot wondering what the makeup etiquette was, what dress etiquette was, things that maybe they felt sensitive asking a real person and felt safer asking the chatbot, which I think is an interesting dynamic when you're deploying chatbots, where there are some topics where people are going to be more comfortable actually asking or commenting to a computer than a real person. So I thought that was just a fun little anecdote. That's sort of a side dynamic when you're deploying chatbots like that. And Denise, I did see your question. Yes, the 40% of customers, that statistic is all industries and across all countries. I want to share just one more use case for you. I could go on and on, but let's just do one more. And that is the use case of performance support. And this is particularly pertinent when you're using the modality of a mobile-based chatbot. So imagine being able to program automatic answers to questions and getting, cutting out all the steps to finding a job aid. One example of this that I love is an acronym chatbot. So lots of companies have lots of acronyms, and it can be overwhelming trying to understand all the different acronyms. And so imagine a scenario where you're brand new to a company and you're in a conference call or you're in a meeting and someone's throwing out an acronym and everyone seems to understand what the acronym is, but you. I have experienced that many times. It would be uncomfortable to stop the meeting and say, hey, what's this acronym? But if I could just pull out my phone and ask the chatbot what this acronym, or just text in the acronym, I could get an instant answer and be really caught up on that. That's a great example of leveraging a frictionless user experience to give someone an on-demand help. And of course, that can extend to, this screenshot here shows, implies helping a sales rep with product line pricing if they're on a sales call. But anytime you're stuck in your job and you're in your job, to give people a frictionless path to a job aid, I think is really compelling. And so that's the performance support. The performance support use case. So there are others, but hopefully that will just give you a sense of the types of things that you can think about when you're considering deploying a chatbot. So the combination of the test the little demo that you're doing now with some of these use cases, hopefully will get some light bulbs turned on for you.
Thank you, Vince. So you're probably wondering, why did Kaiser Permanente need a reinforcement strategy? And as you all know, one of the frequent problems we face in learning and development is the lack of retention of what we're deploying. So we know that we've been focusing on expanding existing offerings to include a reinforcement strategy in everything we do. And we've been looking for ways to support the application by increasing a learner's retention of knowledge and skills gained in training. So that was really the reason why. This was a focus of us trying to think about how can we use technology to help us in this real issue around retaining learning. So we started out with a vision in regards to, as I mentioned earlier, we were working on how do we get people to retain more of what they learn and the behaviors we want them to exhibit. So we had a vision, and through the pilot that we are going to talk about today, of Mobile Coach. First, we wanted to help reinforce what was taught in the program that we're going to discuss. We wanted for the folks to continue to build on their learning experience along the way, so what past the actual event of learning, the learning class, the event, to continue to learn. We also want to provide a cool method and have a cool experience. We think that a chatbot is a cool experience for most people. We also wanted to make it easily repeatable so that we could continue to send messages over time to reinforce certain key elements. And we also wanted to collect data around the participants' engagement with the tool. So this is the vision we had for when we started out: reinforce, create a cycle of learning, design and develop something that was personalized, automate the process, and then collect data. So for my particular organization, we were focused on a specific audience. Within the area that I have responsibility for, we primarily support the following audiences: new sales, which is new sellers for Kaiser; account management, those people who retain our accounts; our underwriters who actually support new sales and account management and underwriting the insurance aspects of our business; as well as I also support non-sales folks and also non-union people within Kaiser. These are we call non-sales positions. We have about 1,500 people in the new sales and account management, and about 6,000 employees that are non-sales. So this particular audience, we wanted to find a tool that could support all of this and focus on these critical areas. Number one, onboarding, as I mentioned earlier, is an area that I have responsibility for; early career development, manager and leadership development, career development, and then recognition. So these are the programs that we will be using mobile chat for moving forward. So disrupting the status quo is what this is all about. So Vince, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Yeah, so David and I thought it would be good to pause just at this moment of the presentation, just to give you some context of who Mobile Coach is. This is the company that I founded. So we're a chatbot authoring platform. The idea is that when people like David and his team are sort of orchestrating, hey, and envisioning what sort of curriculum do we want this conversation to have, to give teams like that an option to author that journey without having to have developers or engineers that are typically needed to create complicated chatbots. And we then allow you to then sort of author that path and then configure that chatbot onto whatever channels best fits your audience, whether that is a web page or whether that's on SMS or whether that's on WhatsApp. And so that's a little bit about Mobile Coach. We're 7 years old and have had a lot of experience supporting initiatives much like the one that David is describing.
Thank you, Vince. So I'm going to talk about the program that we actually applied, our pilot. At Kaiser, we use the GROW model for coaching. And so if you don't know about the GROW model, it stands for goals, reality, options, and what's next. And we applied this particular program to our non-sales and non-union managers. The program's about a day and a half in length, and there's a series of virtual workshops. So after the class is completed, after the day and a half, we have a 30, 60, 90-day follow-up. So the audience, the managers that participate in this program have to come back to a session where we have an opportunity for them to reinforce the content and then have them share what's working well, what isn't working well. We could learn from each other as we go along the learning process. According to research conducted by Kim Blanchard, organizations that effectively prepare managers to coach are about 130% more likely to realize stronger business results, stronger employee results through higher levels of engagement, productivity, and customer service. So this particular program has lots of benefits, and so you can understand why we selected this one, because it has the greatest impact on our employees' ability to perform. So the managers have an impact on employees, which have an impact on performance. this program was a great program for us to implement a chatbot. So here's what we did. Our initial mobile coach pilot consisted of 2 to 3 series of messages being sent per week for 12 weeks to 26 participants. You can see on the screen here that we used and we created an avatar called Coach Grover, and you can see Coach Grover on the screen here and the first message that we sent out to alert our folks. Kind of a fun character just to really engage our audience with the chatbot. So Coach Grover messages consisted of multiple choice, fact or myth, short videos, reminders, reinforcement, and evaluation questions.
And you'll know, David, if you don't mind just jumping in here for a minute, you'll notice that David's team did a wonderful job really understanding the audience, because it's a little bit of a balance. You don't want to overwhelm people. They're getting these messages on their phone, so every message that comes in from Coach Grover is going to be an interruption. In fact, any message that you get incoming via text is an interruption, whether it's coming from a family member or a colleague. And so those messages really have to feel valuable. So they did a great job of architecting the user experience. It was only 12 weeks, so it's not going to go on forever and ever. They paced it where it was just a couple messages a week, so it wasn't coming in every single day or multiple times a day. And they made it really fun with these avatars, and they were just super creative. And so, yes, the chatbot is holding people accountable, which can be viewed as sort of a stern use case. And so, and people recognize that they need to be held accountable, but I think it's important to have a real good design sensibility, not to overwhelm people, to have it not be so dry, so that they have a very positive user experience. And you can see with some of the messages here, the quizzing, the avatars, just the whole voice was really phenomenal.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Ben. So you probably are wondering, so how do we go about assessing and evaluating the program as we went through? So of course, we have a robust evaluation process at Kaiser. We use both the Kirkpatrick 4 levels of evaluation model as well as the Thalheimer learning transfer evaluation program. So for Coach Grover pilot, we were specifically focused on the following levels, 0 through 3. So first, we wanted to, level 0, we wanted to actually have the system capture data using different reports embedded in Mobile Coach to understand the response rates of people. So that's something that we wanted to find out, how are people responding to Mobile Coach? What was that like? We also looked at level 1, which is we asked learners to complete a short survey sent via the chatbot. We also used level 2 for knowledge assessments administered upon the learner's completion of the solution. We did that through a text. We also, several times a year, we identify large-based learning solutions that we've deployed, and we do a sampling through the use of understanding, is it impacting folks' behavior. So we do that occasionally. And we also do the same thing with impact. So we do probably less of behavior and results as we should, but we do pick large-scale programs several times a year. So Mobile Coach will be one of those because it was a large-scale pilot implementation, and we haven't been in the process to get to those points yet, but we will be working on those. So I also want to share with you the next thing we did is we also spent some time, and I want to spend a few minutes on the Thalheimer learning transfer evaluation model, because most of you, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it is composed of 8 levels, starting from basically some of the levels that Thalheimer feels that aren't really effective measures, but they are measures that we still need to take a look at. So I'll start off with level 1, and we all know that some of us give credit to learners when they attend, and they sign up and they start a course. We all know that this is probably not a good level of evaluation of any program, but I know that sometimes attendance is important and we do capture that data. Level 2 is about the learner activity, the gauge and activity of engagement in the actual learning workshop. We do this both informally and formally. We also know that this is also not a very good level of evaluation. Level 3 is where the learners are often asked about their perceptions of the learning experience, and we do that at Kaiser. We actually ask pretty much of how people feel about the class and would they recommend it to others. While this is an important metric because it gives a level of information around satisfaction, we also know that as a evaluation metric, it's not really a strong metric, but it is a metric that we do consider. Level 4 has to do with knowledge. I'm sorry, I'm getting some feedback. There also level 4 is around knowledge, and it's often dealt with in terms of how we test people's knowledge soon after the learning event.
Fernando, mute your phone, please. Or would you mute your audio, Fernando? Thank you.
Thank you so much. So what we think about in knowledge is really reciting knowledge, and so that probably isn't the greatest of measurements either. So you can see that Tolheimer doesn't really think a lot of levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. Where this really comes into real action is level 5, 6, and 7, and 8. And level, in the Kirkpatrick model, you look at level 2, which is designated as learning. And we know that this is, we talked earlier about reciting things, and that's what we normally look for. At this particular level, we're looking for results that can actually constitute comprehension and the ability to make decisions from what they've learned, and the ability to successfully engage and complete realistic tasks. So this one is really where we're actually applying the knowledge and behaviors and skills learned in learning and applying it in a way we can actually judge whether it's being comprehended and used in an effective manner. So this is a really key area for Tolheimer. Level 6 is talking about task competence, and this is demonstrated after the learning has been deployed, and learners can demonstrate how the task competence right after the learning, they're well on their way. So once they can demonstrate that transfer, you can actually see that people are actually applying what they've learned. Level 7 and 8 have to do with the idea around learning transfer, and what that means is when the learners are actually learning and enjoying the work that they're doing, they're applying, there's a joy of applying it in work situation. And so level 8 is then what are the effects of transfer? So is it actually driving the results that you're looking for? So this is a different model if you're not familiar with it. We do use aspects of the Tolheimer model intersected with the Kirkpatrick model. So our pilot results are the following. Let me just put up both screens here. You can see that 70% of the participants felt that the frequency of the Coach Grover messages were just about right. Also, 60% felt that the length of time spent with Coach Grover over the 3 months was just about right. And in fact, which was really strange to us, which we didn't realize, 10% really wanted more. They really enjoyed the engagement with Coach Grover. From a participant quality of the content, they rated us a 4.7 out of 5 stars. They also, on a scale of 1 to 5, ranked the message they found most useful with Coach Grover. And you can see the ones they felt that were the highest value. Overall, the pilot received a Net Promoter Score of 60, and typically plus 50 is excellent, and plus 70 is world-class. So we're somewhere between excellent and world-class in regards to this. Here's what our participants thought about the program. Getting feedback back. Can you all hear me? I'm getting feedback. Okay, so I'm going to continue on. So the pilot actually worked out very well, and we got some really great feedback from the users around what they thought about it. They loved Coach Grover. They thought the fact of being held accountable was important. They liked the interaction with the text messaging, and they felt that that Coach Grover kept it on the forefront of their mind and reminded them of key information, and it was a fun and engaging way to engage with reinforcement. So what did it take to deploy this? Most of the employees at Kaiser have Apple product phones, so typically you need either iOS or an Android device. You need to have access to email, of course. And then for the certification process, we actually sent 2 of my employees to Vince's location at the time for a 2-day training, which allowed them to be able to, there are aspects of this where Vince can do the programming or you can do it for yourself, and we wanted to have the capability internally to do it, so we sent them to the training where they can then program and test messages, upload user information, run reports, perform maintenance. We also can provide ongoing support, and we receive ongoing support from Mobile Coach throughout this process. So Vince, would you like to add anything about?
Yeah, of course, since David's team did that last year, we've been introduced to a global pandemic. So we have converted our chatbot design training to be online. And many people sometimes think that chatbot design training is very technical. Actually, the #1 skill that we have found that's needed to design effective chatbots is writing, and having good writing skills. And so if you have a good writing skill and you're good with decision trees and logic, you can learn how to design compelling chatbots. I should also mention that you don't necessarily have to be a SME. You can work with a SME in terms of the content expertise. So you can have someone that's just good at writing these messages and architecting the decision tree of when the messages should trigger. And really anyone can learn how to do this. And so we highly recommend folks who are interested in chatbots to do it themselves. And as David mentioned, we do also, sometimes organizations have resource constraints to be able to have people freed up to learn how to do this. And so we can also offer those services as well to help you stand up your first chatbot.
Great, thank you, Vince. And just to let you know, we just actually sent another person to Vince to have them certified, and that was done all virtually. And the person's already up and running and working, supporting us. So what does it take internally? The roles and responsibilities we identified at Kaiser for the pilot and the implementation of Mobile Coach. So of course, I took on the role, and I am the advocate for the program. I champion it across the organization. In fact, this particular pilot was highlighted by my boss's boss at the senior vice president level last year as one of the innovations for organization, and we received recognition for it because we were stepping outside the normal boundaries and trying something new to support our organization with the use of mobile chat. We also had a program lead, and the program lead's responsibility is to use their expertise and enthusiasm to promote the technology and to look at ways to promote performance development and engagement throughout the program. We also have a manager of learning support, and that job was really in place to create the infrastructure to help us collect the user information and also support the ongoing support of the program. We also have a learning consultant. This person performs the daily task of doing knowledge and skill gaps, identifying learning needs, assessing learning needs for Mobile Coach, whether it's the right solution. Also, they do program testing, administering and managing messages to the participant, and running regular reports. And then we have a project manager who actually manages the overall project, making sure that we are managing our vendor correctly and making sure that we're on track with the project. So it was a small team, but a mighty team of folks. I would say the minimum of folks you would need is someone to advocate the program, someone who's the lead, probably someone who's going to, as Vince said, do the writing and organizing, and then someone who actually manages the project. So probably a minimum of 3 people, I would say, for the program. So Vince, do you want to share about the authoring?
Yeah, I guess I got ahead of myself a little earlier. This is the slide I thought we were going to be at, but so I just reiterate this where authoring does not require technical expertise. I will just also emphasize what David mentioned in his team slide. It was invaluable to have an executive like David sponsor and really champion this initiative, just because oftentimes chatbots are brand new to an organization. So to have that executive support to see through and troubleshoot and help people get up to speed, really I thought was a key point of the success of this pilot.
Thank you, Vince. So you're probably wondering, where are we today? So since our initial pilot of this program, we have launched about 9 additional pilots, and this slide needs to be updated because I gave this a couple months ago, and we have currently about 125 users for GROW. That's the program that I mentioned earlier. We're also using it for our advanced leadership development program. This is for our high potentials. We have about 24 users, and then we've also deployed this to our new seller program that we launched this year called OnRamp, and that's onboarding for our new sales folks, and we have about 25 users there. We also are looking to expand the use of Mobile Coach in our organization to support our equity, inclusion, and diversity program, and that would include over 6,000 of our employees. So we see across the program the opportunity to expand the use of Mobile Coach. In addition, there's something new that we actually launched. It's intended for our internal departments in my department, and the ultimate goal is providing connection, inspiration during these uncertain times. So you all know we've been in COVID lockdown for many months, and I was trying to think of a way to communicate to my employees on an ongoing basis to kind of inspire them and keep them focused on the good things that were happening in the world and not all the bad things. And so we started this process. You can see the first message on the right-hand side. Eventually, this chatbot will serve a much broader focus around communicating key announcements, special thank yous, as well as departmental updates. But if you think about what I've just shared with you, imagine what a chatbot could do to help your organization. There's an unlimited use case for them, and as we continue to evolve with using it, we're finding more and more ways, and this is one of them that we didn't initially think of how to use it, but it's been well received among my staff in regards to these messages I send out every Friday. So unlocking innovation. So some final thoughts for you when you think about this. Let me just pull them all up. So, of course, this automatically improves the overall learning engagement and supports reinforcement. I think clearly you can see how if we're deploying a program and then we follow up with these 12 weeks of messages and provide reinforcement as well as tools and performance support along the way, you can see how this would help a learner continue to learn and adopt their new skills, behaviors, and knowledge in the workplace. Vince, you want to go through?
Yeah, I'll jump in on number 2, and just the big takeaway of this modality again, and hopefully you experienced this with that little demo, is just frictionless. Frictionless is like the key word because you know, any extra step you're asking your learners to take from a technology perspective, we have all experienced you'll just lose people. So Chatbot's a great frictionless user experience, and that's probably the biggest takeaway. Now, and you'll come down to using the right frictionless channel modality and having a really compelling design that's a delight to interact with.
Thank you. And I will tell you that if you have a chance to look into this with Vince, it's been a very cost-effective use for reinforcement, and the approach has been very flexible because you can see how we've come up with different use cases, and Vince talked about the ability of different use cases. So we find that the ability to do the program ourselves, work with Vince's organization, as well as the flexibility and the cost effectiveness of this program has been very beneficial to Kaiser. And lastly, we believe that that the technology is accessible to all, and that with careful design sensibility and project planning, you will be successful in deploying this. So with that, I'll stop and we can open up for questions.
I know a lot of people have been asking questions in the chat, and David, since you've been doing the lion's share of the work of the presentation, I've been answering what I can in the chat.
Okay.
So thank you for everybody that's been asking questions in the chat. Any other questions about chatbots or about this Kaiser use case from anyone that we haven't covered so far? Virginia, I think you're on mute.
I'm using two different devices. Sorry. I was saying, while people are collecting their thoughts and thinking how they want to word their questions, I have a question / comment, but I first want to thank you. That was great. I loved it. And I love your little avatar, David. It's so sweet. I'm sure everyone appreciates that when they get those.
Yeah.
I was really curious about the anecdote you shared, Vince, about the onboarding and the people who were asking the chatbot about how to dress or what makeup or whatever. That would not have even thought of that. And I think you have to think of everything when you're programming for the chatbot. Any tips or advice about how people can try to think of all those possible scenarios when they're starting to program?
Yeah, my number one advice about that is not to stress about it too much. Part of our platform includes anytime that someone asks the chatbot something that you did not think of, that you'll get alerted, and you can then answer that question through just through a human. Because if you try to like capture, I've got maybe two things to say about that. First of all, you're not going to get so random questions like, hey, Coach Grover, how many miles is it from here to the sun? Just like random things. You're not going to get that. We don't really see that at all. But you will get some questions and inquiries that you're not, that you didn't anticipate that are relevant to the situation. And in cases like that, you'll just have, like in David's case, the people that were certified just got an email alert. They can review it. They can either, if it's a one-off, they can just answer the question to the user. But if it's something like, oh, you know what, we should put this into the chatbot, it's very easy for them then to program the chatbot to take that question the next time it comes up. Great, thanks. That's good to know. Did you see that Lakeisha was asking about ROI? What kind of avenues did you take for that?
So, of course, I mentioned earlier that we haven't gotten to that area in terms of impact. It's something we're going to be doing this year, but I don't have any data at this point.
Gotcha.
The one thing I'll say about that is that the thesis is that learner engagement is positively correlated to the outcomes that you're looking for. And of course, there are a lot of variables to the actual ROI of the content. I think ROI for training content as a whole has been difficult in our industry, maybe elusive sometimes. So the way to think about the chatbot is, hey, in our overall ROI calculation, are we seeing a positive correlation between that learner engagement and the results that we're looking for? That's how I would plug in the chatbot into the overall ROI formula.
I would build on that in the events when you talk about engagement. So when I think about the data points, when people go and click on the performance support or they respond back, I mean, the level of engagement, we typically don't get that in any other way post a learning event unless we bring people into a physical, workshop or a meeting. So the level of engagement is high, and we can see week to week that it hasn't degraded over time. In fact, I showed you that some people wanted even more information and more of the messages. So again, you can't equate return on investment, but when you think about the thing we're all striving for is employee engagement, and this tool allows for higher levels of engagement. And typically when I look at engagement, I think engagement equals hopefully a highly engaged employee means more discretionary effort. So once people get highly engaged, they give more because they feel there's a reason to. so that's what we're always striving for. So that's something we look for at Kaiser.
Denise, I think you have a question?
Thanks, Virginia. Boy, thank you for such an interesting presentation. This is so exciting, and I don't want to sound greedy, but I'm just wondering if you have had, and maybe David, this might not have happened yet at Kaiser, but Vince, if you have clients where you have a requirement for multiple languages, like perhaps it's a preferred language associated with someone's user ID.
So I'll let Vince answer that because we're a US-based country. Vince?
Yeah, absolutely. So our platform does support multiple languages, and that's another big advantage of a chatbot, because you can have the chatbot speak to the user in their preferred language. It does add a layer of administrative overhead, because now you're having to author in multiple languages, but our platform makes it easy just to localize. You can have one chatbot script and just localize it for the different languages you'd like to support.
Vince, one of the things I was thinking of using a chatbot for is evaluation after, let's say, a training module or something like that. Could you talk a little bit about how that data is stored and how, you know, someone would access it and export it and things like that in order to analyze it?
Yeah. Yeah, so everything that the chatbot, every interaction with the chatbot and a learner user is stored in the platform. So you could get, you'll get credentials to the platform to go in and look at the data, export the data, delete the data. You know, the data is yours, of course, because a lot of times data storage and privacy will be a sensitive issue. And so, yeah, you have complete access to that. And assessment's a great way to use a chatbot. You can use it simply just to send a link to whatever online assessment that you have, or you could replace that online assessment with a chatbot experience.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So David Cropper is asking, he says, we have been looking at adaptive learning. Can this be tracked for compliance purposes?
Adaptive learning is also a great use case for a chatbot, because the chatbot can be programmed to, you know, to do traditional adaptive learning techniques. So if someone has, you know, if someone's demonstrated a mastery level at a particular topic, then you can accelerate them and have them skip certain steps. Or if you find that they're stuck, you can have a remediation path. All of that can be configured using our chatbot authoring platform through an internal scoring system. And so for compliance perspective too, to keep track of all that, having those records auditable and those records available for compliance tracking is something that we support as well.
Great. All right, we've got about 4 minutes left. Anyone else have questions, anything, comments? What are some of the best questions you guys have gotten, David and Vince, when you've presented this before?
So I'll just share my experience in regards to what I'm most amazed about. And as I talked about the deployment of this inspirational messaging that I send out to my staff, people know it's from Mobile Coach, but it's amazing how people think it's me personally sending them a personal note. The responses I get back are just overwhelming. So I do a survey every week. My Mobile Coach internal person sends me the updates of the comments that people send back, and it's just amazing, because really you would think by now, we've been doing it now for about 9 weeks, that people know it's from Mobile Coach, but the responses feel so personal. And so that's one of the things that you probably, as Vince talked about earlier, how people don't think they're going to respond to a computer-generated message, but yet people see a person. We try to make the message personal, and so there's a way to write the message that feels like it's unique to you, and we've been really good at that. So I just want to mention that. That's one of the things that I wanted to share with you today.
Denise, you have another question?
No, I'm sorry. I forgot to lower my hand. Sorry.
Okay, that's great.
I need a nudge.
And also, if you didn't see it in the announcements that came out by email, there's a really great article that's on Vince's website about chatbots being the next, I don't remember the exact title, but how it's used in learning and how it may be the next frontier or something like that. I can try to put the link in the chat here really quick, but you can definitely find it on the mobilecoach.com website too.
And Virginia, we want to mention to you that Vince and I will, this file is pretty large. We'll try to figure out a way to get it to you, but it's a large file because there's a lot of graphics, you know, animation. So
right,
so
okay.
I'll figure out a way to get that to you so you can share it with your audience.
Exactly, yeah, and I meant to say that that David and Vince have agreed to share the slides with all of you, and it has been recorded, so I can share the link to the recording that will be in the cloud with everyone who registered for this conference. So last call, any comments, questions, thoughts while we have our awesome speakers?
Well, thank you for having us. It was a delight to present this and to interact with all of you. Thank you very much, Virginia, for asking us to participate.
Yeah, thank you, Virginia,
thank you.
and audience for participating and then allowing us to share my experience and working with Mobile Coach.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.